Hey, WokeNFree Nation. Newsly is an audio app for iOS and Android. It picks up web articles about the most trending topics on the web at any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice.
For the first time in the history of the internet, the entire web becomes listenable. Browse articles from topics you choose and start playing. Stop scrolling, start listening.
You can follow any topic as specific as you like, from sports, science to Bitcoin, or even one of your favorite celebrities. It will find you the latest articles and read them to you aloud.
And they have podcasts as well. Explore trending podcasts from over 50 countries. Our podcast, WokeNFree, is there too.
Now let's get into the episode. Hi, it's Natasha.
And Khalil.
We are the co-hosts of
WokeNFree.
Thank you for tuning in to our 295th episode of WokeNFree. If you've been tuning in every week for WokeNFree Wednesday, you know that WokeNFree is all about being real and honest with each other and you. We talk about everything and anything important to us, you, the world, and nothing is off the table. This week, we are talking about something quite serious, quite somber. When will gun violence end in the United States? So, if you too have been troubled and challenged by all the gun violence news, articles, and incidents, this is the episode for you. But before we dive deep, a couple of things to go over. First, have you gone to WokeNFree.com, not just to listen to this episode, thank you, but to download it through the Podbean app? If you have the app, then you can put in your comments, and this week of all weeks is another really great opportunity for you to come on and share what your thoughts are on gun ownership, on gun violence, what's being done, what isn't being enough, everything in between that. We welcome all comments. Whether we agree with your comments or not, we welcome them. So please do that. Now, if you listen to podcasts on a device where you can't get another app like the Podbean app, then that's really sad, but fret not. You can still support us. How? Go to WokeNFree.com, go in the Listen tab, and then pick your platform of choice where you're going to follow and subscribe to WokeNFree. So we're on most places where you can consume podcasts. iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Play. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora. It's a WokeNFree world. Now, on WokeNFree.com, you can also click to subscribe to follow the show through the Podbean app. And on social media, always find us at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, and LinkedIn at WokeNFree. And lastly, if you have 90 seconds, which is more a statement, less a question, because you know you do, we would love for you to go to WokeNFree.com, go in the Listen tab, and then pick your platform of choice where you're going to give us a review and tell us how this show is feeding into your life. Thank you in advance for the 5 stars. I appreciate y'all, and Khalil, I'm sure you do too.
Yeah, that would be good with me if they do the 5 stars.
Absolutely.
So, before we start the conversation, though, why don't we share a little bit about ourselves? This week we're asking, would you rather kiss a gecko or a June bug?
I'm sorry for my ignorance. What exactly is a June bug?
Good question.
Do you know?
I have no... I've heard of it. You've heard of it, right?
No, I've not.
You never heard that phrase?
No, that's why I had
I've
to
heard
ask.
the phrase,
that's
but
I started with an apology.
I heard the phrase, but actually, off the top of my head, I can't tell you what it is.
Is it an actual bug?
Yeah, I've heard it's a real type of bug.
It's a real type of bug.
Yeah, I just don't understand what it is.
So between reptile or bug is essentially the question. So,
kind of.
Okay, so I would say I am not a fan of either of these entities. So if I had to make a choice to answer your pointless question, I would guess pointless and actually irritating.
Oh, it looks like it's like a little beetle thing.
Oh, God. Okay.
I think we've seen them. Oh, yeah, I didn't know that's what they're called.
Okay, that's enough.
That's enough?
Yep, that's enough.
The June bug?
Yep, thank you. So I guess I would kiss a gecko, but I would rather die if either of these options were in front of me.
So you'd kiss the gecko, you said?
Yep. You know how I feel about insects.
Okay.
So, and your choice?
Mine would be gecko, because I like lizards. I have no issue with them. And the June bug, I don't even know how you can kiss it. It seems like you would eat it by mistake kind of thing. I guess. Like, it's like kissing a duck. I mean, a speck of dust. I mean, you can't...
Nope.
Can you really kiss a speck of dust if it's so small?
Gross.
So the gecko's better. The gecko's bigger. You can kiss it. It's just going to be probably a little slimy. Or the gecko. You would pet the gecko, though.
Again, I have no interest in engaging with either
with
of
little
these
reptiles?
entities. No.
But what about the gecko from the Geico commercials?
Thank you and goodbye.
You'd say that to him, even though he's seems like a nice individual?
He could be the
Seems
orchestrating
well-spoken and
theater, for all I care.
well-tempered.
Thank you and goodbye.
A well-mannered gecko like the Geico wouldn't work.
Thank
the
you
Geico
and
gecko.
goodbye. Yep.
That's what you would say to Ed.
Thank you and goodbye.
Even though he's like, being very decent gecko.
Nope.
You just don't like the lizard kind of
like
thing, right?
large mammals. I like...
so it's small. But if it was huge, like a dragon sort of lizard...
I would be interested in seeing a dragon,
Then you'd kiss the dragon, then.
No, I have no interest in that. But I would be interested in seeing the dragon. I have no interest in engaging in these, kind of...
But if I say it's a dragon, it doesn't breathe fire. It's just big like a dragon.
Yeah, no thank you.
You still wouldn't engage with it, even if it's just a huge lizard.
I'm supposed to be kissing you. Why am I supposed to be out here kissing other things?
It's like if you have a pet dog and the dog kisses you. It's similar to that. It's
okay, but again, the question is, what dog do I want to see, not what dog do I want to kiss, right? Like, I'm very... uncomfortable with this question.
Oh, okay. It's just giving, it's kind of like treating it like family, I think. That's...
well, I would rather a hug than someone coming up on kissing on me unless I've asked for a kiss. I'm not, again, consent is important.
Okay, I mean... it's about consent, I mean...
I didn't ask for it.
But you're the one kissing the gecko, it's not kissing you,
that's what I'm saying, I'm very
right?
uncomfortable with this whole situation.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, you may be... That seems pretty uncomfortable, but... This topic at hand is uncomfortable for a lot of people as well. They don't even want to talk about it in some states and in some jurisdictions even. So we're going to do it here, though.
Yep.
We've got to discuss it. It's a big issue at hand. The gun violence is getting a little bit out of control, and it's been that way for a long time.
Yep.
Maybe you can tell us what's the current gun violence stats in the U.S. that folks should know about.
Yeah, so thankfully, we live in an era where there's a lot of resources available to you by literally just a click and a Google search away. So on BBC, they shared that there have been, and this is a recent article, and again, if you're new to WokeNFree, all of our articles and references you can find in the episode notes at WokeNFree.com. And again, on BBC.com, they say that there have been at least 160 mass shootings across the United States so far in 2023. And these include even the attack at a 16th birthday party in Alabama recently, where there were 4 people who died at a school in Nashville, where 3 children and 3 adults were killed, and a mass shooting in Kentucky when this was printed last Monday, which left 4 victims dead. So recently there's just been a spew of a lot of mass shootings, and figures from the Gun Violence Archive, a nonprofit research database, show that the number of mass shootings has gone up significantly in recent years. In each of the last 3 years, there have been more than 600 mass shootings, almost 2 a day on average. While the U.S. doesn't necessarily have a single definition for what mass shootings mean, according to the Gun Violence Archive, that they define mass shooting to be an incident where you have 4 or more people injured or killed. So that's how, I guess, we can easily get to those numbers, because usually when we're hearing about these things happening, it is typically that amount of people. Yeah. And, the deadliest of attacks recently, folks may remember, was in Las Vegas in 2017, which killed more than 50 people and left 500 wounded. And the vast majority of mass shootings, however, leave fewer than 10 people dead, which is, I guess better than 500, but...
Well, 50 was the most.
Yeah, 50 dead and 500 injured. But
yeah.
In this episode, we're also going to share some of these, some graphs that can be really helpful for folks to see kind of how victims, I guess, have been, where they sit in the United States. So Vegas versus Florida versus Virginia, things like that. And then some additional stats to consider. Now, this was from 2021, 48,830 people died from gun-related violence in the United States back in 2021, and that was shared from the U.S. Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, so the CDC, and then that was nearly an 8% increase from 2020, which was a record-breaking year for firearm deaths, and no question there. That was also when we were dealing with the pandemic, right? So
that makes sense.
That's
a lot of
interesting.
Stress and tension.
And then when you have like gun-related breakdowns of like how much were suicide versus how much was homicide, in the CDC reports in 2021, we had 26,328 that were suicide deaths, and then 20,958 homicides, which really.
That's not even covered the suicide deaths by gun.
I didn't realize
they
how
don't
many
even talk about
died
that
by
at all.
suicide. That's a really large amount of folks who passed. And then when you look at like international comparison of gun-related killings as a percentage of all homicides, in 2020 we had 79% of deaths that were attributed to homicide versus in the UK in 2020 4%. Australia, 2020, 13%. Canada, 37%. Right? So the U.S. is definitely a heavy hitter.
Yeah.
on where deaths are occurring in conjunction with gun violence. Yeah. Now, how Americans feel about U.S. gun laws, so this was a survey that was done by Gallup or shared by Gallup for October 2022. 57% of folks would like gun laws to be more strict. 32% kept as now, kind of like they feel like it's okay for where they sit now. And then less than 10% want less strict. So over 50% of folks do agree that we should have stricter gun laws, which is good to hear that the average bear is understanding that what's going on in the United States is deeply troubling. And even Gallup goes on to share that Democrats are nearly unanimous in their support for stricter gun laws, that with nearly 91% in favor of stricter gun laws. So interesting enough, which maybe isn't too surprising to folks, that Democrats are really behind wanting more more strict gun laws and stuff like that. I
don't know if your source got more specific, but just in terms of universal background checks, that's even higher percentage of the total population. Mm-hmm. It's like 70% or more people want universal background checks for all, because there's states that's not a law. Mm-hmm. So in terms of that, there are people in favor of that. Most people want that as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, in accordance to the Trace, they shared that in 2022, there had been 648 mass shootings where at least 672 people were killed. And then there were more than 3,370 people that had been shot. So that also just seems really remarkable, the amount of death and violence and hurt that had occurred from that. And so these were just some stats that I thought that just were shocking, just because I wasn't aware of the numbers. And to your point, I would say the most shocking was even just the suicide.
Yeah, to me that
number was
that seems
really challenging.
I mean, we could. I guess some of the laws could still help with that, but what I don't know, to go deeper into that, is how many of those were people using firearms obtained illegally versus they obtained them legally, to commit suicide.
Well, I think
that's what I'm wondering.
There's more to it than just the obtaining. It's to your point around mental health stability and stuff like that, right? Once you would, in addition to increasing it where everyone has to say get licensed for a gun, shouldn't there also be a mental health scan? And
but if you obtain it illegally, that wouldn't matter. That's what I'm saying.
So
it's kind of like if all those suicides were because someone took their parents' gun, then it doesn't matter what kind of checks you have, unless we're starting to do a thing like we talked about it with bio kind of
where they
biometrics for the gun, where the gun won't work if it's not unlocked by the owner. You'd have to do stuff like that. So, but otherwise, just making laws isn't going to do anything for people that obtain guns illegally.
Maybe it's a 3-part type of thing.
But if all those suicides are by the gun owners themselves and they legally had it, then it's not then, I mean, then that's something you can actually prevent. So that's why I was saying that's an interesting stat that it should be talked about more.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anybody knows either way, how that's occurring. That'd be good information to know. Do you think that gun violence will ever end in the U.S.?
To answer the question for the episode, I do believe we talk and joke about this, but anything's possible, right? Within the term impossible is possible. So yes, do I think it could happen in our lifetime? No, I don't think so. But I think it's possible. Do I think there's a couple of things that are needed? Yeah. So like we talked about, we definitely would want to change the requirements for gun ownership, meaning every state needs to have the same way that for you to drive a car, whether you're in Arizona, New York, Massachusetts, you have to have a registration for this. I think we need to create a system that regardless of the state that you're living in, there's a certain level of documentation and mental health scans that go with gun ownership. It's a responsibility.
So everybody has to register regardless of what state you're in.
Yeah, I think that we have to get away from having states where you have lighter registration requirements for guns because it's not working. And it creates a situation where, fine, if they want to shoot up in one state, but that state is harder to get the gun, they can just go elsewhere. That's not going to cut it, right? Like, let's have the same requirements across all the states in the United States. Let's also have mental health evaluations that are free. The gun owner doesn't have to pay for it, but are required for you to be able to get your gun. And that should probably be done minimum on an annual basis to keep your registration active, but probably.
Oh, you have to do it annually?
Yep.
So, oh, wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Prove that you're mentally fit to be able to have these firearms, whether it's 1 or 50. Prove it.
Wow.
And then also I would even advocate for free or discounted gun range offerings. So having more accessible, safe outlets for people to use their guns. Maybe that would reduce the urge to go out and want to shoot people. Maybe if you could go into these gun ranges for free or heavily discounted, and if that means building more of these gun ranges, then woohoo, more business made there. But we've got to provide more safe spaces for people. And then also let's have assault weapons with high capacity magazines being banned as well, because again, people aren't going and doing mass killings, mass shootings with, hunter rifles, right? Where it only holds 3 bullets and you have to reload, right? They're doing it because they have these high capacity magazines and they can shoot 50 bullets at a time. No person needs that ability to do that. What are you shooting at? No animal needs to be killed like that.
So, I mean, it's a thing of if you actually go to the range, it's kind of annoying to have to load up, 30 magazines if you only have 3 bullets in there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you have to load up so many bullets, it would be kind of exhausting.
Yeah, but those
so you
guns
get a high capacity magazine so that now you're ready to go. You can just go to the range and you can shoot for a while.
That doesn't need to be privately held in homes. That could be used in these gun ranges. They don't need to be held. What do you need to have that in your home for? What are you shooting?
You don't need it in your home. It's literally only for the range.
So that's where those guns should be available for anyone in the United States. Otherwise, there's no purpose for you to have it in your home. And if you can't shoot 50 people if you don't have a gun that could shoot 50 people, right? Like, it totally eliminates the ability to be able to have multiple.
Well, you won't be able to commit mass shootings.
Yeah. So isn't that seem like not so hard to implement? Just, hey, this is where we're at with it, and that's that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you can't buy a nuclear bomb, right?
Same way we don't have that option.
If everybody was allowed to buy that, we'd be in big trouble, right?
A lot of people would have those.
Yeah, so you could.
If people feel like their rights are being infringed upon, well, we have a right to also have children be able to come home after they are sent off to school. Parents have a right to feel like their children can be safe, and currently that is not where a lot of parents sit, and that's not fair either, right? We have to balance gun ownership rights with also rights of safety.
It's too much of an effective weapon. It makes it too easy, to have those high capacity rounds to abuse. So that's definitely. It's something to definitely be thought about. Do you really need that at your home?
Nope.
But to try to manage how to do that and make it equitable where like the gun range isn't ripping you off, because what'll happen is, all right, now, I guess it'll be more costly for you to use the high capacity magazine, right? Because you're gonna have to pay the gun range something.
But like we're saying, maybe we can have the gun range maybe the government can subsidize those gun ranges again to build more and make them more accessible. Maybe make all of them 24/7. So again, people can go to them at 2 a.m, 2 p.m. There's no limitations. So, whatever it takes, but we've got to have people understanding that in their home, they do not need to have these violent tools that can really cause greater damage than is needed in our society.
I mean, the real problem is that it's the gun lobbyists, right? 'Cause we see by the stats that most people want these stricter laws and they want people not to have guns that shouldn't have it, but the lobbyists want to make sure that the corporations, and they're lobbyists for corporations, they want to make sure that they're getting paid and they're, making more profit year over year. So stricter laws mean less sales. So they're not going to go for that. They're, they're going to go against that.
Only if
that's one of the biggest problems.
If they're only reliant upon consumer purchasing. But like I said, if we have governmental subsidies available for the development and expansion of gun ranges across the United States, they probably would earn more money.
I don't know if
by
that's
having these more gun ranges and then having the guns produced that would be available. Those more violent guns produced and available in those places.
You wouldn't need as many guns though, because right now there's more guns than people in the U.S. And that there's no other country like that. Actually, we have what's like 3 guns per person. It's for a person that is in the States. And the thing is, if you have all those guns in the gun range, you wouldn't need that many guns, because now people can share the guns, right? It's not a big of a deal. So I don't think they'd make as much, to be honest. And they know that. Maybe they won't.
Maybe they'll take a loss less,
but and they don't want to take the loss. But they have to, right? I mean,
they can't. But they're not in control of American safety, right? Like we have to take a stance somewhere.
And if you think about it, like, it's not such a big necessity that there should be that many more guns than people in the U.S. Like, it's not that's overkill. So they need to understand that that's not in the sense.
It's not appropriate, and the violence.
It's not so essential for them to have make these profit that people are gonna have to that people get killed from it, because it's.
And aren't we still producing guns for war and stuff like that? So I mean, isn't there money to be had?
Yeah, but that's standard. Like they're gonna get that either way, and only certain manufacturers are buying. It's not like they're buying every manufacturer. It's only certain that are getting approved for that. So. It's not everybody that they're buying from.
Listen, industries change, standards change. At the end of the day, I think the people need to be heard, and more so now than ever. I think people have had enough of waking up to seeing stories about this child dead and these adults dead. It's just when is enough enough? And I would argue that enough is now.
Well, yeah, they need to, I mean, I think they got to pivot, like you're saying, into the gun range. Maybe the manufacturers they're opening gun ranges, I guess. Maybe they're just affiliate with them. Yeah. And that's where you get to test out
test out all the guns.
Anything that they have. They're all there, and they can keep them on lockdown easier. Yeah. It might have to go towards that, because, this is not, now it's not working, because it's because of the people that have abused it. It's not, the statement is true. Guns aren't the ones.
It's not the gun that's killing people. It's the person behind it.
Because it's not like people are picking up a gun and then the gun just kills somebody.
Yeah,
people
you have to pull
intentionally,
the trigger.
And they're intentionally aiming at people. Yeah. It's not like, oh man, I didn't know that was going to happen. Like, no, they're literally using the gun to kill people. So. Because of that, now we're going to have to make it stricter. People,
of course,
they ruin the nice things, as they say. So you can't have free range, because that's too much for them. There's too many people that are abusing it.
Absolutely. I know. I want to get it clear that,
that.
We both, we're both fans of gun ownership rights. In any way, like I know sometimes they try to say that.
I don't think you should just take away all the guns.
Yeah, no, that's not.
There should be no guns in existence.
I'm saying guns can exist, but they have to be highly regulated. The same way that we regulate people getting into a vehicle, there's no difference. But this is a dangerous weapon, and there's certain rules and regulations that associate with it.
Someone made a good analogy. It's like, for voting, every single state you have to register to vote. Go. But how come with guns that's not true?
Exactly. So if
weird.
If folks want people to vote,
and they want to call it like a universal right to own gun. voting is a universal right.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both similar. I know they're different
and
things.
And there's so many limitations on voting.
Yeah, right? See how they limit you at that?
If you have a felony, all these
and then they still can take it away.
They take away rights to
which
voting.
They do it with their gun, but only in certain states they do that. But
and we need to.
It needs to be universal, like a federal law.
It works this way in Kentucky and a little bit different.
Yeah, it needs to be a federal thing.
In Maine, it makes no sense. Every state, let's be consistent. That way, people can't play shenanigans and run to this state to come back with this, their goodies in another state. It makes no sense.
Yeah, this
is a federal matter. This is not a state to state variance that's needed
I don't think gun violence is going to ever completely end. I think it'll go down a lot though, because people are getting fed up, and
it's painful.
What's going to happen is these politicians that don't make any movement, they're going to not be elected again. And
exactly.
So what's going to happen? You're going to get people in place that will say, "All right, sorry, gun manufacturer. I know you want to donate to my." My re-election campaign or my election campaign, but I'm not going to take your funds, and I'm going to vote. I'm going to actually let the people's voice be heard. So
yeah,
I do think the violence will go down. It's just taken much longer than it needed to. Like we have all these people being harmed that didn't need to be, but eventually it's going to go down. It's never going to go completely away, because even in those countries that don't have them, like you saw, there was like 4%.
Yeah,
sometimes it happens, right? Because there's some.
But how about 4%, not 54%, right? Like let's really reduce what's happening here in the U.S. So, what would you say are some of the driving forces behind gun violence here in the United States?
I think it's now is the worst time as ever. Is that citizens are kind of on like different sides of the playing field. It's kind of like. It's us versus them. So they'll say, "Oh, I stand on this side of the like political lines. You stand on that side. Your side is bad. My side is good." So you don't even see yourself as Americans, and that's not really good for citizens to do. You should all see yourself as. I know we're all human, right? Every people should be seen as humans. On planet Earth. But let's be real. People aren't doing that yet.
Oh yeah, people are territorial.
So we'll go down though. At least for U.S. citizens, you should be on the same line. And our country's been super divided recently. So now people are like, nope, we're on different lines. And because of that, it makes it easy for them to commit violence against others. And then of course, there's like racial tensions, right? There's people that just hate groups of people based on how they were born. It wasn't anything that they could change about themselves. It's like, this is how they were born and you just want to harm them. So I think that's kind of behind the gun violence. People do it even for sexual orientation and gender identity. People are doing that. Yeah, it's like, you're different than me. So if you get down to it, it's about like difference. You're different than me. So, I'm gonna do this.
I hate this, and I
think that's like a big force. And then another force would be mental health, because we don't want to admit it, but all of us probably have like we can get our mental health in check.
Well, we all have we all live through different seasons of mental health issues, and whether people want to agree or not, it's a reality of your life. If you have a brain, then you're susceptible to mental health issues. So
so I'd say mental health is definitely a force behind it, and the third, another thing is I think media, because a lot of our media contains violence, whether it be the news or it be entertainment. Or
kind of normalizing the death of others, you think?
Not even death, but harm in any sort. Because violence is seen as the answer in most of the cases. Yeah. Even in cartoons and stuff, I see that they're just like, all right, these aren't they're not doing what I want them to do. It's time to react in a violent way. It's in young content. Content for young people. So I think it starts at a young age. It's kind of normalized that violence sometimes it's the right answer. Which, people argue that they agree with that a lot. I don't think a lot of people would even disagree and say violence is never the answer. I don't think anybody would say that. That's the thing. I think violence, it comes up. Not that it should be the go-to, but people are okay with violence, and it's glorified in the U.S. Yeah. It's a little, and we even have like hyper-violence stuff, right? We go even above and beyond once you get into adult content, like the rated R movies and stuff. So I think that can have an effect. I'm not saying that's like that's not the main factor, but it's definitely in the back of that mind that it's not a big deal. So I'm not the person. I'm not going to say, all right, it's the movie, the music, the video games that's making people. No, I'm not saying that's making them do that. It can have an effect, though. Yeah. I'm just saying that it's just kind of normalized. Like, hey, you know,
killing of others is something that
it's very normalized.
People probably see that every day.
Yeah, so it's not as shocking kind of thing. Sure, yeah. So I think those are kind of some of the driving forces behind it. And then the last force is, to me, is like the NRA. I think they're behind some of this too.
So political, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Like just because, again, you know, they want to be able to sell these weapons. So, you know, I don't know if this goes hand in hand, but I guess the selling of kind of fear, right? That, you know,
propaganda, yeah.
Yeah, so you need these weapons. I don't know who preaches that. I mean, I guess it may be media. Left, right? No, I mean, it comes from all sorts in terms of just media showing you like, hey, you need to protect yourself. So get a weapon. Like, so aren't we like shown that? Yeah. Like there's danger out there.
Radicalizing people to feel like they're safe in their own
the right
homes,
does it a lot, but I'd still say it happens from left sometimes about, that, you know, this could be dangerous. The right just will show, hey, this is the answer. You gotta definitely just get a gun because then you can use that against the force.
Well, again, to your point, right? Like if violence is always the answer, then, and that's promulgated in our media, in our news, then that becomes the rhetoric in your mind.
Yeah.
And you just automatically, like, kind of what we always laugh about this because we love this scene from, Legion, I think is the movie, where the angel comes down, Gabriel, I forget what his name was. I think it might have been Gabriel, but he comes out and then the person says to him, "You're lucky, sir, that we didn't shoot you first and greet you later."
Yeah, right? See. That's what it feels like
to be American sometimes. Then it's like maybe people will shoot you first and greet you later. Yeah, and that's a dangerous proposition to me.
Yeah, it's a little extreme, right?
I mean, it's comical, really, at best.
It's a shame. Is the truth.
It just seems very United States. Like
definitely, yeah.
Like USA, like hashtag USA.
That's just like it brings up visions of the wild, wild west,
which is current day society. Yeah.
Well, it's not supposed to be though. We're not a lawless nation, is what's interesting, right?
Depends on what side of the law you're on.
That doesn't mean the laws don't exist, though. The laws exist, but it's saying it doesn't exist for you.
For everyone?
Well, that's a different question, right?
That's what I'm saying.
That's not the wild, wild. At least the laws are there. Just because you're above the law doesn't mean that you're lawless.
One could argue that's lawless in some form or fashion. It's all perception. It's a little different. It's perception. Now I understand it's not literally like
when there's no
around
laws,
and people are shooting.
Yeah, then you decide what happens, right? You're like, all right.
We thankfully are a little bit better than what it used to be, but we're pretty darn close in some regards.
Yeah, there's definitely some people that get over on the laws, right? They don't. They aren't treated the same.
So I would add here some driving forces I think that's going on behind why we have such extreme gun violence. One, unfortunately, there is a great desire for self-harm in this society. There's a lot of people that walk around wanting to harm themselves and they will literally take a gun and shoot themselves. So that's driving, I think, the suicide death that's happening. Next, the desire to harm others, whether that's, to your point, radicalized media, news, or racist bias that's people have been reared in, whatever the issue is, we don't feel as a society that the killing and the harming of others is completely wrong. Like there's some people who can justify those actions, whether it's because they're afraid of other people, whether they feel like they have to defend themselves or that other person's going to harm them. There's a myriad of reasons, but people have some type of desire to harm others. Some feel rationalized, justified, whatever. But I think that that's also causing what's going on here. And then to your point, outside of the political thing, like due to lack of governmental intervention is why we're here. Because at the end of the day, all these different private entities could do what they're doing. But if we had a government that was like, nope, we will not tolerate this, right? Then we wouldn't be sitting where we are today. And sadly, the government hasn't responded in a way or created a system that could prevent what's been going on. So, it's not too late. There's still opportunity for us to have change and for us to protect our children. At bare minimum, if people don't really care about adults, as parents, I plead that we can find a way to have some progress for just protecting the children, because they are most sacred in this society, and they're the best of what human beings can ever be. You are no more pure than you are when you're a child. So,
the government, I mean, they allow the corporations to write the non-existent gun laws in most cases. That's the thing.
And
they just let them control that.
Our government has to take a hard look at what are the things that we could be doing, like listening to WokeNFree, like taking some of the suggestions made in this episode, along with other folks who are thought leaders in this space, to really say, hey, enough is enough. What could we do today that's going to create a world where 20 years from now, we would look back and be like, that's really wild that this was happening. Yeah. And thank goodness we are far from this new space.
Yeah, we should just have there's very basic laws that can go into play. Because I know if you get too restrictive, some people are going to say, hey, the government, they're sticking their hand in my pocket. I don't like it.
And you know what? They're also welcome to leave the United States. There's a bunch of people that create TikToks around how they've moved to Portugal and are happy. Go ahead. Live your best life.
But I don't know if Portugal has as free gun laws
they
as the
can
US.
Deal with that, and good for them. They can do that Google search.
Because of the first world countries. If you want to talk about like free laws and non-laws for gun, this is one of the few countries that you can do that.
Of course. I mean, there's a lot of freedoms here.
There's no first world country much like here.
I'm sick of we can't be too restrictive. If you don't like it here, then you can go elsewhere, and you can see if you can find a better place. There's a bunch of people that argue that they are having a better life internationally than they ever had in the United States, and if that's the case, good for them. But we here have to figure out a way to protect children at bare minimum, and that means more restriction. It's just a reality. We have to be more restrictive. But you gotta
also get the lawmakers gotta actually be on your side and not just they gotta actually be listening to their constituents and not just listening to others, right?
And maybe also we have to, maybe if people stop buying guns as well, like would that be an opportunity to get people to, because money talks. And if folks aren't making money,
but why would they stop? Is the thing
as a protest, right? Like as a protest that you can't shoot if you have no guns. So
yeah, I mean that one's going to be harder though.
Oh yeah, I know people because there are people who want to shoot.
What would happen? Because the people that protest, they'd be like, "Good, you're protesting," and now there'd be discounts, so the other people would buy even more. They'd buy 10 times the amount.
That's why I'd want.
They'd say, "Yeah, we
get
a discount
the change
now."
To start from the governmental level.
It's hard from a consumerism. People enjoy them too much.
Oh yeah,
just the people that actually purchase them.
Absolutely.
So, we need some laws in place, at least very basic, the minimum everywhere. Here we go, yo. So what's the scenario? It is scenario time. Scenario 1. Byron is a Democratic lawmaker that started a protest to reform gun laws in his state. He broke the rules by walking on the floor of the House and speaking without being formally recognized. His fellow Republican lawmakers voted to have him removed for breaking the rules of the House. Do you think the Republicans made the right move?
You're hilarious. I mean, you're combining two.
What am I combining? What do you think's happening here?
So, the discussion around gun law reformation, and then etiquette of lawmakers in the House or whatever, wherever they're speaking in their practice of being a lawmaker. And so, okay, sir. So, should you be removed? I think that seems like an extreme response, given a lack of formal etiquette, procedural process that has been ignored. But again, I'm not quite sure is that a right? Can you remove someone for doing that? And if that's the case, then I guess
it's only been done twice since the 1700s.
Oh wow! So it's very rarely used.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess,
and it does happen all the time.
I'd want to know what is the criteria for understanding the to petition the right to the wanting to remove someone. Is it that the person has to make that mistake once, or do they have to do it 3 times to? They
make it once, and then someone can call for a vote, and then if everybody votes to go forward, that's how it goes.
Well, unfortunately, sometimes in life, as I tell you, you only get one chance. But there is a second and third chance, unfortunately, in life.
Yes, I know you're too extreme with that. You're very extreme with that.
Yes, I'm a Virgo. But I would say here, given the severity of what he was addressing, he started a protest to reform gun law. So
it's actually a good cause.
Yeah, so he's invigorated, and so maybe he just got too invigorated and forgot there was a misstep here.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to me to call for pulling the plug automatically on this. That to me seems like an overreaction and or a way to try to silence positive change that our society looks for. So I would argue, I don't think it's the right move. I would just probably give this Democratic lawmaker a warning, that there was a mishap here in your procedure here. Please don't make this mistake again and continue on, not remove him.
So they got it wrong then.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would make sense for the party in this scenario if you were to attach certain bias that people have around.
But that's such a wrong thing we shouldn't even be that way in this country where it's my party versus your party. The reasons of the parties were just to kind of keep like a level playing field, so no kind of viewpoint took majority and took over. It's not supposed to be us versus them.
But that's how that's been made, though.
Yeah, it is. It's really bad, though. It's like, all right, my party won. Haha, your party loses. Like, that's not what it's about, though. It's not really about that. It's about just... you're supposed to like work together and meet at common ground so that no law is too extreme.
Definitely not the.
I know
not the jive.
We're at it's definitely
us versus them.
It's like all the time. We're playing a team sport where there's different teams, but that's not what it is.
We're not even playing a team sport. We're playing chess. I mean, that's what we're doing.
We're all supposed to be on the same team and playing different parts. That's what it's supposed to be.
Definitely
like Dems and Republicans are supposed to be just different parts of the same team. It's like different positions.
No, we're chess.
It's definitely not. It's one against us.
Yeah,
see, that's
every move is a counter move. Yeah.
And that's not how, like, technically the country wasn't founded for that. It wasn't founded to have two parties like this either. So it's against the founders' wishes.
Revamping that's needed then of the party structure because
definitely.
Dems and
it's a big issue.
Are not playing a team sport.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's not
At least my interpretation, maybe.
No, it doesn't seem like it now. Yeah. And as you see, you don't realize this was actually a true scenario. I didn't make this one up.
Okay.
And to go, well, I'm not going to go all into it. I have the source in the episode link, so the WokeNFree listeners can look at that if they haven't heard about it on the news. But what happened, there was 3 Democrats that actually spoke out of turn. 2 of them were African American. 1 was a white woman. And the 2 African Americans, they were the only ones who got expelled.
Fun. Yeah.
So it's like,
Makes
of course, and she admitted, she said that race definitely played a reason here why I didn't get expelled and everybody else did.
Pleasant.
And I think of currently 1 has been reinstated and the other one, I think he might be being reinstated. But yeah, I mean, this is crazy. Just because someone spoke out of turn, you're going to get rid of them. Really, you just didn't want to, you don't want, you want to hear them out because they were talking about something real. And you don't want to bring that up because your pockets are being lined by corporate sponsors. So you don't want to hear people talking about gun reform because, again, how are you going to get reelected in your next campaign if a majority of your donation money comes from the gun manufacturers, right? You don't want to hear that. You don't want to push their buttons because then they're going to push yours and say, now you get no money. But this is totally wrong and this is reprehensible. When you have your elected lawmakers, shouldn't the people have a vote on if they're removed? I hate that idea that their fellow lawmakers, they can just pull them off without a vote from the citizens. To me, that's a messed up thing. And that's a general rule.
Well, it's a disconnect from the purpose of why we have our constituents.
Yeah, shouldn't they be the ones who decide if they're pulled from their role? How can they just be booted out just because your other people don't like you? Like, it's kind of like if you, like, let's say you have a job and you work with your coworkers and your coworker did something you didn't like. If all your coworkers could band together and get you fired, there's something wrong here.
Well, especially if you were voted by someone else to be there, then the people who got you there are the people who should control whether you're there or not someone else.
But that's what I'm saying. Your employer it's just like working. All right, your employer hires you, but somehow your coworkers can decide that you're fired. Yeah. That's what's happening. Yeah. Your coworkers say, you know what, we don't like you here.
We've developed a system where it's super detached from the constituents and the people who voted these folks in. They're no longer in control. They now, like, we vote the folks
you just vote them in, and then they just still
go
play
within the system of doing their own thing instead of really being in line and in touch with who voted them in and what their wants are and what their concerns are.
And because the thing is, and then this is what's happening too. All right, we voted them in, but now they're not meeting our expectations. But they're locked in for a couple of years, so
and that
you can't
too.
do
This
anything.
should be on an annual basis. You got to run and prove.
Is annual even good enough though? To me, it should be almost like monthly check-in kind of. And it doesn't have to be monthly, but there should be something where, let's say we voted you in, and you're going completely against what we thought you were going to do. I mean, how do we get rid of you?
Well, you should. So
you just
it should
have to wait a year.
I would argue it would be an annual term, but you have the right to pull the plug earlier.
All right, so you still can. Like, if enough people make a petition or something,
60 days or 90 days in the office to be able to have
just
effectuate
give
change.
them a chance,
yeah.
And then you
but
could say,
you could have a vote, an emergency vote before the annual term.
Yeah,
because
like that.
But no, and of course not. It's the same thing. Like, do you really need a Supreme Court to have a life tenure? I mean, no.
That's insane. Yeah.
It makes no sense. Some of the rules that we have in place make no sense for real change and progress in our society, but.
So that there's a lot of revamping needed.
Oh,
definitely.
Absolutely. We have to stop paying people for a long time to sit there and disrespect us on a daily basis.
And not, because it's supposed to be the will of the people if we get down to it, right? That's what it's about.
Because they don't believe that we are in a position to be able to adequately make those decisions. And
I know. I mean,
that's why we voted these people in.
At one point that was true because you couldn't even get the people's opinion. It was an easy thing.
The amount of people that you could survey, you could figure out what people want.
Yeah, and the invention of the internet.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Now it's easy to do. It's not so hard anymore.
Yeah.
You can do that. Scenario 2. Elise watches fictional movies where the storyline goes the same way. A weaponless perpetrator preys on a victim and then ends up being a victim when they are taken down by a gun. The movie always shows them walking away with no charges due to stand your ground laws. Does this sort of movie perpetuate gun violence?
What are you saying? Wait a minute.
That's your question?
Wait a minute. What? A weaponless perpetrator.
Yeah.
So this criminal has no gun, preys on the victim, and then the victim actually had a gun and shot down the criminal.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the victim wins because they
stand your ground laws.
Stand your ground. You have the right to shoot as you see fit, I
guess.
Shoot and greet you later situation.
I mean, this wasn't shooting first though. This was, hey, you're fighting me. I'm not going to lose the fight.
Same came at you left field.
Being
and
attacked.
So you said, okay, excellent, I can shoot you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, now I can take you down because you came for me.
Perpetuate gun violence.
Yeah.
I think it perpetuates the idea that you have a right to protect yourself. And then you start to associate the protection of self with gun ownership. And then the ongoing image of, oh, someone's going to come at me left field. I better have that gun and that gun better be loaded. I think it plays a role in helping people justify their own purchases, their own quote unquote defense of themselves. I think so. Could I say it's the sole cause of gun violence in the country? No, but I definitely I don't think it's helping, right? I think if people are seeing this type of a film or these types of scenarios, maybe once a month or even sooner, then that's going to create an ongoing narrative in that person's head.
Yeah. I mean, I think that this definitely perpetuates gun violence, but I'm on the stance that, people need to stop trying people because, you might get shot. That's what's going to happen.
So don't be a criminal, and definitely don't be a criminal without a gun.
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, don't be a criminal, but if you're a criminal, definitely don't have a gun because then you can be caught. We can take you down easier. That's the thing.
But isn't that the problem?
No, it's not a problem.
It's
a good thing.
Because you're saying the criminal's the one getting shot down.
Yeah,
so
that's a good thing.
If they were the criminal with the gun, wouldn't they not be shot down?
And that would be the problem. That's why I want all criminals to remove their weapons. So you want
the criminals to walk around with without guns, and you want everyone else to have the guns.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. That's what I want, exactly.
And who's the Republican in this situation?
No, because then it levels the playing field because now criminals have to think twice.
So how about we just stay back and we back it up a little bit and just say, how about we just stop having crime happen?
That's a harder thing. Let the people try their crimes, but...
So please try me because I have my gun, you're saying.
Well, you don't know if I have
try
it,
me,
right?
try me.
It's a mystery, right? You want to take the chance?
That's a hell of a mystery to solve.
It's a surprise. Like, you want to find out?
What kind of surprise is that?
But that's the whole thing. That would deter crime.
I don't like surprises too. Don't come at me.
It would definitely deter at least a crime against individuals because people would say, maybe I can't prey on this person.
You know what I just see? I just imagine a whole bunch of people in their cars having stickers that say, please try me, with like a big old gun.
Yeah, I mean,
try me, please. Like, and people just hanging that on their doors. And it's
exactly.
Like, oh, okay, well, this is different.
I mean, people shouldn't, I just think criminals shouldn't be attacking individuals. That's the thing.
If we were to also, saying
like violent crimes are not right.
Gun violence, if we were to tackle poverty in this country, and why people end up turning to crime.
Well, yeah, you can look up why they're doing it, right?
Yeah, people will do things in desperation or through mental illness.
There could be that,
or through gang activity, things. Right? There's a lot of things.
It's not random though. We know that. That's one thing we'd say.
Just randomly deciding to rob people or randomly deciding to attack people.
There's a reason for all of it.
There's a reason for all of it.
And you can actually, and we can pinpoint it. It's not even like, oh, I wonder why. No, we know.
Why. People
we
don't
know why
have
in each
enough
case.
In this world, and they will take before they ever try to create on their own.
Yeah. It's some people just fall down into let's just, let me do this. This is the quickest way to do it. I don't know any other way to do it.
But maybe if they listen to WokeNFree, they will realize now that people are of the perspective of try me, please, because I have a gun.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you gotta think that maybe I shouldn't do this because it can happen to me. I can become the victim. So
the sun doesn't shine.
Don't prey on victims because you can become the victim. That's what
try me, please.
Yeah, that's what I would tell these people. Like armed robbery is not a thing to do. Or even armless robbery. Don't do that.
Okay.
I'm saying without a firearm. Like don't do either or. It's a no-no.
None of that.
Yeah. But I still do think it technically does perpetuate gun violence because it says now you can. So how do you prevent crime by using a gun and shooting somebody? So I think technically it does perpetuate that sort of violence. Scenario 3. If Takar lives in a high-rise apartment where people decorate their front door for holidays, every holiday he places a sign on his door that shows a cartoon version of a revolver shooting a bullet. He gets tons of complaints from his neighbors, but ultimately is allowed to keep it up. Do you think acts like this support gun violence?
So...
You can't laugh at that.
What holiday is he celebrating by showing a cartoonized revolver shooting a bullet? What is that symbolic of? Is that Christmas or Easter?
It's Yeehaw Day.
He is a Wild West. He's a fan of the Wild West, and that's a holiday?
It might be.
This world is a different place sometimes, I think.
Fun fact, there were tons of black cowboys.
Thank you for that.
Just want to throw that in there.
Contribution.
I just throw that in there. People don't realize.
And there are black people that ride motorcycles too.
No, people know that though. People know that one. I don't think they know about the cowboys.
And there are black people that own yachts. And yes,
now that might be something people don't know. So that's a good one to put out there. I just had to put that out there.
Oh goodness. Okay. Well, I think that this seems troubling because people are putting up signs in this neighborhood for holiday seasons and to be decorative and celebratory in nature, and putting up a symbol that represents gun violence to me seems anti-celebration, and it seems more violent in nature, and it seems like you're attracting a negative audience, as well as you're trying to send a violent message unnecessarily. And so I do think that this type of behavior would be supporting gun violence, because if everyone else has an Easter bunny up and you've got a gun and bullets out, That is not very Christian of you, and it's definitely not very Easterly of you. But what happened to the bunny? At least put a bunny with the gun or something,
All right. I mean, that can get more iffy.
But if we're just putting the gun out there, that to me seems too violent in nature, and you have to think about the impact on the children that are seeing this, as well as how adults might feel unsafe walking by this and existing with this. So. I would advocate that even though he is doing this and is allowed to do this, that folks try to communicate with him just the real impact that's happening here.
Okay. I actually disagree. I think this doesn't support gun violence, because technically this is just a gun shooting a bullet. It's like showing a car driving on a road. That doesn't mean the car runs over people. If he had a person behind that bullet, then I would say, okay, that's not cool. But technically... This, in and of itself, is just showing a gun doing what it was built to do.
During the holidays, do you think that that's appropriate?
Now, is it appropriate? That's a different question. See, that it may not be appropriate, but does it support gun violence? I don't think so. I don't think it supports it at all.
Well, how does it not support gun violence? By showing guns on days that is not being celebrated towards.
Because maybe it's not on those days,
doing it on gun day, but he's doing it throughout all the holidays,
But on
right?
any of those holidays, that might be his day to go to the gun range. So he's showing what he does at the gun range, and it's nothing violent of the sort.
How is that in conjunction with the celebration of the period, though?
Because that's how he celebrates. It's kind of like people have meals for those holidays. He goes to the gun range for that holiday.
But how is that not demonstrating an act of violence by
how
putting
it
them
is?
Out there?
What's violent about the gun in and of itself?
Guns,
shooting a bullet.
when people see guns, they think violent action.
I don't know. Well, see, that's interesting. People have that connection, but I think that's only due to media. That's not.
But nonetheless,
in and of itself, it's not just a true.
That's the bias that sits there with society. So
yeah, I don't. That's
agree. Why I think, based on our current day bias, it does promote gun violence.
Because I think that's the person promoting it themselves. It's kind of like you made that connection on your own, or either way, how you got to there, you're making that connection. This image of itself isn't making that connection. You're drawing that conclusion to say that's happening. Kind of like if someone,
every holiday, they put a noose on their door, right? And maybe, to your point, maybe they're rodeo fanatics and they want to demonstrate the power of...
how is the noose tied? Because it's like, even in rodeo, they're not using the noose knots that they use to hang people from. Not as slave, but literally for when you hang somebody, I forgot what type of knot it is. Yeah. But if you have those knots on the noose, that means one thing. That's about hanging somebody. But in the rodeo, they're not using those type of knots. They use
but
like
again,
slip
think
knots
about someone is celebrating Christmas on one door and it's beautiful, and then you come to this noose on the door. I mean, it's on the next door.
Yeah, but the noose is already offensive in and of itself. It always is offensive. The revolver on its own with a bullet, that if that can't be offensive to you because it's just that's a weapon, and that could be used at a gun range. It imbues
violence, though. That's what that's
I don't think it does.
The thought that comes into someone's mind. But okay, I disagree.
And I think there's people that would agree with me. To be honest, I would say that's not
always people to agree with everything.
Well, there's people that believe the Earth is flat, but
there's a lot of different people.
We're not trying to go over there. Yeah, I'm just trying to make the point that. Just because you have a connection doesn't mean your connection's right.
Of course.
It's not based off of the reality of the situation.
The fact that everyone's thinking, like I said, about
Easter when I think of violence,
you see guns, it's like...
Because when I think of violence, I think about harm being done towards others.
In your mind, I think you're thinking,
that's
unless
violence is.
Everyone else has an Easter bunny, and then on someone else's door, it's like a cut off head on a bunny on the door. That would be probably more
another thing that'd be violent if there was even blood on the gun. Because, all right, you could try to argue, maybe it's blood from an animal.
Now it's one extra step, but either way, a gun, just presenting a gun during holiday season is definitely not appropriate.
It's not appropriate, though. I agree with that. It's not.
It seems more violent than not. And it lends to, because like you're saying, real quick, you could turn that image into something even more violent. Yeah. So it's going down the pathway of violence. Maybe you wouldn't see it fully as violent,
you could change it, because watch how it can change. What if on Easter he wins the sharpshooter tournament? It could be representative of that.
Yeah, but again, it would have to be
he's able to hit the targets.
See how it needs more context, where Bunny doesn't need more context.
But maybe it should, because what that truly means is kind of interesting as well. It's from a sexual nature.
You're breaking too many bubbles for people.
I know, but the bunny, as I'm saying, I'm not saying anything about Easter itself. I'm just saying the bunny representation. No, but see how come people don't make that connection with what bunnies do?
Because they have a different mindset than you.
Bunnies don't lay eggs, though. Everybody knows that. So why do we have bunnies and the egg? There's a reason for it. See how that's not being interpreted? People should interpret that for their holidays. Why do we have a tree for Christmas? What's that tree represent? See, there's a lot of questions you could ask. That's why it's interesting to come after this guy.
Thoughts already, eh?
But I'm just saying that's interesting to get mad at this guy for showing something that truly exists.
I'm just saying that, again, if we don't have to perpetuate guns to people, why? I'm not against them, but I'm saying that we want to be appropriate and we want to be thoughtful around all imagery. And until we change the image of a gun in and of itself right now, guns represent violence to some.
Wow.
Not to some, but
not to all. Yeah.
to some,
we would need a poll on that. Like, does seeing a gun represent violence to you?
To me, it seems like you're one step away from violence. Yeah, because once there's a loaded bullet in there, we're ready to go.
Some people think about that with cars too. Once there's a person in there, it's a dangerous weapon.
So thank God for the driverless vehicles then.
Yeah. Well, depending who's manufacturing them, though, that's the thing. They're like, I don't know, guys.
Hilarious.
Yeah, but it's a true thing. People see the cars and they get sweats coming down their face and they start sweating bullets. I mean, it becomes a really a musty time. So
thanks for the share. Yeah, excellent contribution. Get away from me.
No, I'm just saying because there's these how many thousands of pounds weapons that people drive around every day. And then you have this tiny little metal weapon that shoots tiny pebbles that people are saying causes violence. Like, let's think about that.
Thank God
they're both violent things.
At that time again. It is the conclusion of our 295th episode of WokeNFree. Yes, absolutely. And so, if you listened to this full episode, you heard a whole lot, probably of not what you were expecting to hear, but what we were discussing was when will gun violence end in the U.S. And we encourage you to really, again, take what we discussed. Put your thoughts in the comments. We want to know where you sit with us, agree with us, disagree with us, all of it. It is deeply important, and it's a topic that we encourage you to share this with your loved ones, and let's make this conversation go as wide and far as possible. Now, Khalil, what do folks have to do now?
Come back next week for the new WokeNFree Wednesday episode. Make sure you follow us on social media to follow along the conversation, and make sure you tune in next week for WokeNFree Wednesday to join the conversation at WokeNFree.com.
Absolutely. And for those who are interested in getting in touch with us for any sponsorship or collaboration queries, best place to get us is on our Contact Us page at WokeNFree.com. That's WokenFree.com. And again, on social, love to connect with you on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, and LinkedIn at WokeNFree. And, what comes next?
And what comes next is, if you didn't already subscribe, please do share the episode and make sure you come back to join the conversation every Wednesday for WokeNFree Wednesdays. Remember, WokeNFree is more than a podcast. It is a way of life. Until next time.